Here goes nothing. Hi or not hi. I don't know. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, depending on where you're watching. Um, let's today talk about altruism. It's probably one of the greatest what it's probably one of the greatest virtues of being a human. It's like the best of humanity. When you think of good things human do for each other, it's like right up there, up as a species. Love, it's up there with love. What else? Love, help. I don't know. Okay, it's up there. On the other end, we have things like hate, jealousy, greed. Wow, it's kind of weird how it's easier to name the bad ones than the good ones. But anyway, okay, we're gonna talk about altruism and more importantly, I want to talk about weaponized altruism. But let's first talk about altruism even is and then we could probably puppeteer into what weaponized altruism means. Altruism is basically, I guess, looking out for another person, or rather selflessly giving things away. Like you are not to be a part of the equation. I think it is the best way to describe altruism. You have a problem to essentially solve, and you're not really thinking about yourself or your own needs. I mean, you look that there is being there for yourself and all of that, and we can talk about how completely being there for others is not the psychologically healthy way to go about things, but ideally you'll want to be there for yourself and you'll want to be there for others. But this is about altruism, so let's talk about altruism. Right, so that essentially I think encompasses what altruism means. Now let's talk about how the whole thing is being weaponized, because we in especially close relationships, a father probably forcing his impression of what is good for his offspring on his son or daughter, or parents doing it, or people in close relationships going, I know what's best for you. And I'm guilty of it myself, by the way. I'm probably like the guiltiest, one of the guiltiest people there is about this. I grew up, not just me, man. Okay, happens enough. Okay, you there's also this quote that said, the most heinous, horrible things are done by people who believe they're doing the right thing. So in one way, it's being misguided. But yeah, no, let's not go there. We're here to talk about altruism. So it could be, or rather, I'll talk about my own blind spots as a great example, or a starting point. I grew up watching Pixar movies. I saw Lord of the Rings. I saw how beautiful the friendship between Frodo and Sam is. I I know, I see all of that. Okay, I grew up with like all of these great idols, or great models. However, not a whole lot more is explained about the idol. Then you just see it happening on screen. Okay, Mahabharata, or you just see people being altruistic. You just see people doing this, people doing that. So I had these great friendship models to offer to the world, and when I saw people not really not really um embody, no, not even embody, embrace, yeah. When I saw people that didn't really embrace this idol of the world, this idol of friendship, it would kind of upset me, and I would force people into it, irrespective of I know this is the best thing that humanity has, so you gotta be put in that bucket. It's no different than a father forcing his son to study well and micromanaging all of his life, when in reality it should really be left to the person. A person's um, autonomy should ultimately be left to himself, and that is in one way a bigger mistake than yeah than not showing the path at all. So it looks like you're doing all these altruistic acts. Hitler probably thought ethnic cleansing. I'm doing a favor to the world, and look at how that turned out. Um, yeah, it is a very unfortunate situation when it becomes, or rather, the good things in the world have to be willingly chosen. They cannot be forced onto people. I'm talking about anything here, by the way. Okay, so when you see when I see people being punished for mistakes, they're just being good people because of fear, and you're not still fixing the root cause of any of this. Say a person who doesn't engage in harming other people just because he fears punishment. Sure, it will work, but if he can get away with it, he will definitely do it. And you will also have all these micro harms, microaggressions, and there is suffering inflicted on the perpetrator as well. So good, bad, or whatever should, I think, only be encouraged than just be forced down the throats of people. you I think we aren't really doing anyone any favors by shoving truth down their throat. You be this is the right thing to do. But then again, what about the other person's autonomy, and having them decide what is right or wrong? That is often never really looked into. So anyway, how can we fix all of this? First, the first and foremost thing is, we know frighteningly little about human psychology, and even the nature of reality itself. We know frighteningly little about what we are, about what life is, what consciousness is, and everything. And even from the very little we know, we then know a very frighteningly, or rather the general population knows a very frighteningly little amount of what is already known about human psyche and whatnot. You see this everywhere you go. It is always people with patterns of behavior jumping from one relationship to another. It's almost like they are programs, non-changeable programs, by the way. It's like they've been written and they're just programs, or in AI words, maybe all of these AI agents interacting with each other. And I don't really trust that life experience really changes you, because the underlying causes, they happen in childhood. Those memories, those images, they have to be re-scripted, they have to be changed. You have to change it, like you have to process the meaning associated with them. And none of that is gonna happen if you fail, or no, not fail, if you choose not to see your own flaws, or if you choose not to admit that you've been wrong. And this is something a mistake rather I have made. I would try to somehow distort the truth to tell myself I've never failed in my life, because being bad was this horrible thing. It was never I will do better the next time, I will work on it. It was never that. It was I never made a mistake. That is because so much of what the society tells you is, if you do a bad thing, you are the bad thing. It never is I am a person, I'm a human being who did a bad thing. And so in that way, it be very beneficial to society if you could somehow inform people about psychology, or attachment patterns, or why we are the way they are, or why we are the way we are. That way we will not have groups of people fighting with each other. And by the way, it initially looked to me like, like what everyone believes, that a person who's constantly attacking others, or saying mean things, yada yada, that they themselves are probably suffering, and that is their way of dealing with the situation. Now we still don't know, by the way, okay. the reason for why people with certain wounds, some people overcompensate, some people undercompensate, and different ways that the mind chooses to deal with it. We still don't know why. So it'd be very irresponsible to blame the person for well being that. Me personally, I'd have very rather wanted to be in a group of friends or a group of people wherein people looked at all of my bad qualities as hurt or suffering than me just being inherently bad or rotten or whatever. That'd be nice. And ironically, you know, yeah, and ironically, the people who don't counterattack, the people who don't really get offended are the kind of people who are really gonna help you. So when you're saying a bunch of things, okay, and if the other person reacts with a bunch of things of their own, then it'll be like an eye for eye situation, and nothing is really getting resolved. That probably means that both of you are unhealed people suffering. Damn it, that is really gonna go nowhere. God, this whole thing. Oh boy. And ultimately, I think we have a responsibility towards the society as well, of wanting to improve ourselves and wanting to, this whole self identification process is not gonna just help you; it's gonna help the society as well at large. Because if now I see a person who is suffering, I now know what to do. Okay, my past self would just go, oh my god, that guy is a jerk, or this that this. But it now I can now see people not as black and white, but as different parts of themselves, and there is probably this hurt part, and this part needs work to do, and all of that. Ultimately, ultimately I think what has led me down this path is scientific thinking. I've been doing Arduino projects and stuff since I was a kid, breaking toys, and this fundamental obsession of wanting to know how everything works. I think that's been like a gigantic part of who I am. So that's that. But it is extremely concerning, all of this. And the worst part is, I think most people they die without knowing any of this. So in that way, so many people must have died thinking they were right. Oh boy. Anyway, that was that.